How's that for a slice of fried gold?
You think this is a fucking costume? This is a way of life.
I'll be back.
There's a flesh wound. I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
Take your sticking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
I like my movies. I've been buying a lot more Blu-rays and stuff lately. But $50 is a lot for an app. But I bet it's fully unlocked. Like, I bet it's got everything. Because normally you have to unlock or pay to unlock each category, like for unlimited items that you log.
Right. You hear this guy, $50 ain't a lot for an app. Can't hide money. Can't hide money.
Well, I already bought it on my phone. I don't want to buy it again on my computer.
Oh, you said it is a lot. It sounded like you said it ain't a lot. I was like,
no, it is.
Most of the working class people that listen to our show, Justin, $50 is a lot.
No, I've never paid $50 for an app. I don't like paying any dollars for an app if I don't have to.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just making sure. It's just the way it sounded.
I ain't rich, bitch.
Yeah. Well, hello, and welcome to Cinema Shock, the podcast dedicated to exploring the stories behind your favorite cult and genre films. And well, if your favorite cult and genre films happen to be ROBOCOP 2 and 3, this is the episode for you.
Wow. All three of you out there. John Robert Burke is the only one who would consider ROBOCOP 3 one of his favorite genre films, probably.
Well, after seeing your text earlier today, you're sounds like you're a fan too.
I fucking love ROBOCOP 3. I don't care.
Is that true? I didn't. What?
Oh, you didn't see that tweet?
No, I didn't. I didn't see that tweet. All right.
Yeah, well spoilers. Come on.
Can't wait to talk about that.
Introduce yourself, Gary.
Well, my name is Gary Horne, and I'm one of your hosts.
And I'm Justin Bishop. We're joined, as always, by Mr. Todd Davis.
Hola.
And this is, hey, guys, this is our very first ever like, bonus episode / roundtable discussion. When we moved to that every other week format for the main show, we did promise that there would be some bonus content coming, some episodes that didn't quite fit into our normal format. And this is our first attempt at creating some of that bonus content for you. And so, I mean, not all of these like bonus episodes will be the same. Not all the roundtable episodes will be the same. I think some might be, talking about new releases. Some might be about, I don't know, movie news or something. But some of them, like this one, will tie into a recent episode of the main show. So, this is something we're trying. So please forgive us if things get a little shaky because we don't really have a format for this. We're still kind of feeling it out, which is kind of the point. Is that these bonus episodes will be a little bit looser, a little less structured than our main show. So,
Yeah.
But it'll be fun. We'll just make it up as we go.
It's the magic of no editing.
No, we're still going to edit it.
No scripting. See, that's magic. That's magic right there.
Todd's just presenting the magic. He's showing you examples of the magic right here for everyone to witness. The thing is that like sometimes these movies, what I love about it is that sometimes these movies are going to present themselves with in this case, like a franchise, and you look at RoboCop and you're like, this is not just RoboCop. There's RoboCop 2, there's RoboCop 3. People know about these other RoboCop things that happened. And we decide what we're willing to discuss or spend time on and discuss. And in this particular case, it was just RoboCop 2 and 3, F everything else, except Todd, who watched the remake again. But
and
I'm
prepared to justify that.
Sometimes there are some spin-off things or some topics of conversation that we think might be good spin-off episodes that, you're not going to spend a whole series on or a whole 2 hours or something like that. But
the thing is that we could do a series on like the RoboCop movies and do like a 3-episode series on the trilogy, but it's more interesting to talk about like the first RoboCop in the context of Paul Verhoeven's career. And Paul Verhoeven didn't have anything to do with RoboCop 2 and 3, so it doesn't really fit into that category. So it's like you got to choose, hey, are we going to do a series on RoboCop 1, 2, and 3, or are we going to do a series on Paul Verhoeven? And Paul Verhoeven's a more interesting direction to go in, which just leaves RoboCop 2 and 3 kind of out in the neither, so we figured this is a good way to fit those in and still discuss them. It maybe not in quite as much detail as we would if they were like a main episode, but still kind of a fun, they're still worth talking about.
Before we dive too deep in on RoboCop and leave Paul Verhoeven aside, did Paul Verhoeven get a lot of, without, revealing a whole lot of, the rest of the series that we're going to cover on the main show, did Paul Verhoeven get a lot of franchise opportunities in terms of like, hey, you did the first one, let's do 3, 4 more?
Well, they wanted him for RoboCop 2, but he was already making Total Recall. So
yeah, he was apparently open to it. And Ed Neumeyer, well, this is a perfect time to go ahead and jump right into this. Ed Neumeyer and Michael Miner were immediately approached by the studio for a possible sequel.
Yeah.
This is like right as the movie came out because it started hitting big. And according,
the movie came out in, what did we say, July, I think, and they were working on a script by September.
Yeah. And according to Verhoeven, he didn't want to make the kind of the film the studio had in mind. That's the stuff I saw about it. He didn't want to be the guy who was just cashing in on the success of the first film. He wanted to make a film that he felt like made sense. If it was original, if it was still innovative, if it was still something he felt artistically mattered. That's the cross you bear if you're an artist, I guess.
Well, given those guys' backgrounds, like we discussed on the RoboCop 1 show, that's not surprising. They want their voice, be it artistic or otherwise, to mean something.
Well, so they started writing a script, and Orion wanted like I said, September. Orion wanted their first draft to be in by December, which is very, very quick. And they also had to rush it even more because they were already working on another script for Orion, which is a movie called Company Man that Oliver Stone was supposed to do. And so they really had to rush it, but they did come up with a draft, and it was called RoboCop 2, The Corporate Wars.
Yeah.
And it sounds fucking wild. Like
nice.
It's set 25 years after RoboCop, I don't know. I haven't read the script, so I read an article on in Cinefantastique magazine about RoboCop 2, and they actually talked to Neumeyer and Miner about it pretty extensively. That's from July of 1990, right as RoboCop 2 that we got was coming out. Cinefantastique published this article, and they detail a lot about the proposed version that they had written. So in their version, RoboCop is blown up by a thief who's like trying to rob a bank. He gets blown up. And then the movie picks up 25 years later. And
yeah, they said the thing I read said that it was like some kind of cannon he has, and it like shoots him and pulverizes him into metallic dust.
Wow. So I'm just going to read this little description that I found, because I was going to try to just explain it, but I'm just going to read this because it
makes more sense.
It just makes more sense. So RoboCop wakes up 25 years later in a new version of the United States called Ameriplex, which consisted of upper class plexes made out of former cities like New York Plex, Rio Plex, and Delhi Plex, plus many more shanty towns with residents named Outplexers. So RoboCop is revived in a now abandoned building for the defunct Omni Consumer Products by two goons of a super entrepreneur named Ted Flicker, who plans to make the national government a private corporate entity that he owns. So you can kind of see some of this does mirror what we're going to see in RoboCop 2. But it also says Flicker also currently has a lot of control over the country, despite another person who was a former comedian being the president. RoboCop's new system is also the central computer system of Ameriplex called Neurobrain. This is fucking crazy. RoboCop 2 follows numerous subplots, such as Flicker's plan for domination, a violence-spreading narcotic named Smudge, the internal grid security commander trying to genocide the Outplexers, and RoboCop's code being played with by an American scientist and a Chinese hacker. The script hypes the first film's consumerist aspects. Those in the high-class plexes eat at Leisure Gold, where service droids serve them, and make love with sex bots at various brothels, while the environment's media landscape is filled with news blips, mood-enhancing drug ads, and Moondog, a rapper from space, changing public opinion.
That's so weird. Isn't the thing in Fallout called Moondog? Isn't that guy's name?
I can't remember. Is it like the DJ?
Yeah, like the DJ guy.
That sounds
like,
right.
That feels like his name is Moondog. But yeah, Neurobrain would be like even somewhat sort of a love interest for RoboCop, and try to humanize him even more. And he would like follow. It's not like on like 3 too, where it's like he finds there's like the corporation, the government, and then there's like the impoverished population that like he ends up siding with. And supposedly from what I read, the studio liked this idea, but they were like hard deadline. Like get this done immediately. And the guys were like, we can't get it all together and do it right this quick. Yeah. And Verhoeven in this meantime moved on to, like Justin said, Total Recall. And he voiced his opinion. Apparently that they should be patient and wait for Neumeier and Miner's idea.
It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds cool.
Crazy. It sounds crazy.
Really dope.
But
well, for what it's worth, just to throw this in, if you listen to our RoboCop episode, we mentioned that there's a sequel coming out in, that's supposedly in the works right now that would ignore the sequels and be a direct sequel to the original. And I read that is supposedly based on this concept.
one can hope, because I would like to see that come to life, because it just sounds so wacky, you know. But
is the original script floating around out there somewhere?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't dug deep enough to find out. But so what happens is like that's done by December, and then March the next year, 1988, there was a 5-month Writers Guild of America strike. It started in March, and Neumeier and Miner, as members of the union, took part in the strike. But because the strike went on for so long, they actually got fired from Orion for this picture for breach of contract. So, and then around the same time, Oliver Stone stopped working on Company Man to go make talk radio. So Neumeier and Miner were no longer employed by Orion Pictures at all. And so while the strike was going on, Orion signed a waiver to be able to work on other possible RoboCop scripts while the writers were on strike. And then they asked Neumeier who they should hire. Presumably, I would guess they were looking for someone who wasn't in the WGA who would be able to work during the strike. So Neumeier suggested comic book writers Frank Miller, who had just the year before RoboCop came out, had done The Dark Knight Returns, and then Alan Moore, who had just done Watchmen. They offered Alan Moore the job, and in typical Alan Moore fashion, he's like, no, I don't do movies. And Miller accepted because Miller was wanting to get into screenwriting anyway. And then after Neumeier and Miner got fired, he was kind of the main writer on the sequel.
I'm torn about how I feel about Frank Miller's involvement with the sequels.
I'm torn about. I mean, he feels like the perfect fit because, like, The Dark Knight Returns was like a gritty satirical take on Batman, and he's got all the news footage that feel like the media break things from RoboCop. So it does feel like he's right for the material, but he had never written a screenplay, so his script was considered unfilmable at the time.
Yeah, that's
he wasn't writing because he didn't know how to write movies. So they brought in a guy named Wallen Green, who was the writer of The Wild Bunch, and he did a pretty heavy rewrite on that. Although a lot of Miller's original ideas would later be used on his RoboCop comic book series that came out in the 2000s.
Yeah, and that series is actually pretty dope. I've read a good bit of it. It's a lot of fun. You can probably get it. Yeah, I think I read it on Comixology, so it's very reasonably priced and easy to find.
Obviously, they didn't have a hard time like getting the actors back involved in this. I mean, the actors are just looking for work, and
Peter Weller was reluctant to come back.
He criticized the script. I definitely saw that.
Well, he had also been pretty miserable in the suit on the first movie, so he he didn't want to do that again. And I think he only agreed to come back if they can make the suit more comfortable for him this time around.
Understandable.
I did see that they asked Alex Cox to direct this one as well, just like in the first one.
Yeah.
And it said he turned it down, greatly disliking the original screenplay by Frank Miller.
Yeah. Well, he was involved for like a week or so, Alex Cox was, and then he watched The Exorcist 2. And The Exorcist 2 is notoriously a pretty horrible sequel. And I think that he was just like, I don't want to be the guy to make a shitty sequel to a classic movie.
In an interview with The Guardian, Alex Cox said, Miller was ever thus. I was asked to direct his script for RoboCop 2 and turned it down. Unlike the original RoboCop, which trod a path between right-wing politics and left-wing irony, Miller's script was reactionary and obnoxious, pitting its robot police hero against homeless people. No wonder he's so popular with the Hollywood one percenters.
I mean, this movie, it does. Like, if you know Frank Miller's politics and you watch this movie with that in mind, even though his script was rewritten, like there's a lot of his right-wing stuff in there. Like RoboCop really becomes sort of fascist in this version of the movie. It's not, it probably would have been more blatant in Miller's original script had it not been rewritten, but it's still there, you know. Miller's politics, which have just gotten more batshit over the years.
Right.
Yeah. It's weird because I don't want to oppose somebody. Like I want to enjoy art just for what it is. And then like all that. But yeah, I mean, there absolutely is this Frank's a weird dude. I don't know what else to say.
He's an asshole.
Well, I mean, I think, yeah. Well, I mean, with the announcement from Image, not from Image, from Ben Templesmith earlier this week about his work with Warren Ellis, you know, and in this, that's kind of the nice thing about comics nowadays is that, you know, there are so many great creators involved and it's so available to so many people that when stuff comes out about guys like Warren Ellis, it's easy to go, you know what? I don't need to read that, or I don't need to read Image Comics at all if they're going to support a dude like Warren Ellis. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's and Frank Miller's stuff. It's been, you know, I mean, it's right wing. Yeah,
I'm the goddamn Batman.
yeah, there you go. That does kind of sum it up pretty nicely.
I mean, 300 is so jingoistic, it's not funny. Like it's anyway, that's a discussion for another episode, I guess. But so
we'll do a Frank Miller series.
Oh God, no, we won't.
Oh God.
But eventually Irvin Kershner gets hired on to direct, and that kind of made a lot of sense because after all, he was the guy who stepped into the director's chair on another well-known sequel, Empire Strikes Back. So he kind of had
that one.
Yeah. Have you heard of it? It's a sequel to a little movie called Star Wars. So
the one that arguably is like the greatest Star Wars film to some folks.
So Orion wanted to shoot pretty soon. They'd already done the stupid studio thing where they go ahead and set a release date before the movie even starts shooting. So Kershner was kind of rushed into shooting with a pretty messy script.
He had to like agree to it within like a week. Like you start
really
shooting
quick.
in a week.
So
do it.
So him and Miller would have to kind of constantly rework the film during the shoot, which is why it can come across as a bit of a messy film.
I read Miller was on the set every single day, even though he was not required to be there.
Yeah, well, that sounds like something he would do. But yeah, Peter Weller returned, Nancy Allen returned, Dan O'Herlihy returned, although as I joked in our last episode, he does seem to be playing a completely different character here.
I would argue a better character.
The old man in the first movie is not like the bad guy. Yeah. Like he seems like he's fairly innocent as far as like the corporate overlords go, but in here
he's innocent. He is innocent in the sense of like, I'll just boss everybody around and however you need to get it done.
He's a figurehead.
He's like very much the comic book villain, right. You know?
Oh yeah.
But he's great in it. He's really fun. He's really fun to watch
because he's so good at being over the top. Like I don't know, man.
You know who's great though is Tom Noonan
God
as
damn it.
Kane.
Tom Noonan. I mean, this is the thing. So a little backstory for me. I had this one dubbed on VHS for some reason. I had RoboCop 2. So I saw RoboCop 2 at least as much as I saw the original. So I watched them both and I fucking loved. You know what? Cards on the table. Love RoboCop 2. I think RoboCop 2 is fantastic. For totally different reasons than the original RoboCop, but I think that RoboCop 2 is great.
I mean, I think RoboCop 2 is fun. It does feel a lot cheaper than the first movie, which is ironic because I think it actually had a higher budget than the first movie. But the RoboCop suit looks, I mean, I know they gave it a different paint job in this one. It's got like all the blue on it.
Yeah, and it's made from fiberglass this time because they had found a way to make it lighter for
but it just looks so much cheaper to me.
It's got that sheen, that weird color on it, but it's because it's you know, everything you just said. I mean, it is cheaper, I guess. Like it's something to be lighter and more flexible for him, so he's not spending hours in the chair, basically.
Yeah, but it comes across on the screen, though. I think. I also think that like RoboCop 2 it's got some pacing issues. It's got a lot of really fun moments, but it does occasionally kind of sludge along.
Dude, I would say, like, for me watching it again this time, I thought that it just was like weird pacing. Like, it was never did it feel like I wasn't interested. And maybe that's because of just my enjoyment or investment in it as a kid. But I never thought it sludged along. But I did think while I was watching it this time, like, this is so fucking weird. Like, why are they doing this?
It's weird.
Why is it like bouncing around in the story and then like introducing like the wife as part of the story and him stalking her, and then you resolve it like 20 minutes later,
and they just like, drop it forever for the rest of the movie.
Why did you do that?
I mean, it's a very clear case of an unfinished screenplay that hasn't been properly developed, because that's a big part of the story at the beginning of the movie.
But that's the thing, you can't look at this as his wife. The story. This is RoboCop to like what some dumb jock guys watching RoboCop in '87 were watching. They were. It
just feels like a series of like RoboCop vignettes. It's like, okay, this is RoboCop versus Kane. Now this is RoboCop versus RoboCop 2, and this is RoboCop's thing with his wife, and and Nancy Allen's barely in the fucking movie. Like she just pops up every now and then, which is crazy because she was such an integral character to the first one. But I mean, it's got fun stuff. Like I think, we said in our RoboCop episode that Orion originally wanted a PG sequel, and they clearly abandoned that because in one of the very first scenes, you've got a child shooting RoboCop and calling him a fucker. So obviously we didn't go the PG route. That kid says fucker a lot in that movie, but
hey, bad language makes for bad feelings.
And
that kid was on Star Trek.
Was he?
Yeah, he was.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
And you've got all the stuff where RoboCop's being nice, which is funny.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny.
It's funny, but it's also
a bird in the hand is worth two.
It's so goofy.
I love it. Oh,
it also feels like
this a school day.
And that also feels very much like Frank Miller going like, oh, this guy is like a pussy because he's being nice, so we got to turn him back into like a tough guy cop.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. To me, he just came across like the old chat bots. Like when I was growing up, there was this thing called Dr. Spatzo, which was like an online, or not an online because we didn't even have that. It was supposed to be like a psychiatrist program. Did you guys ever have that? You could ask it questions and it would respond.
Dr. Spanko?
Spatzo. Dr. Spatzo.
Spatzo?
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up real quick. I swear to God, it was a thing. Anyway, so you would talk to it, and it would randomly. It was from 1991.
Wow.
From Creative Labs, and you would try to. It would try to talk to you, and it said, "I'm here to help you. Say whatever is in your mind freely. Our conversation will be kept in strict confidence. Memory contents will be wiped after you leave." This was the thing. Now looking
Like
back
a-
at
it's
it,
like a
this seems
dot.
like some real shit.
Yeah.
The
It's like MS-DOS base.
Yeah, essentially, because it's just like asking you stuff. And essentially, what you would do as a person my age at the time is you'd be like, say fuck. That's what you would type.
Would it do it?
Fuck you, Gary. And so sometimes it would, but so like later on, it would be like, that's not a proper thing to say. You should like,
This is like the great grandfather of like Siri and Alexa.
It was. And so like I thought of him like he's a person. I thought of that program like when RoboCop was walking around. I was like, no, this makes perfect sense for the time. Like this is like, he's just like reading the Miranda to a dead guy. I thought that was fucking hilarious. I don't care.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And like, and there were things that I thought they got, you mentioned this, but as far as in terms of ridiculousness, as far as what the original wanted, I thought this kept the spirit in a lot of ways. Like as far as, I don't know, just craziness. Like the OCP com commercial where the guy like is like, oh, this didn't transfer fast enough. I lost the deal, and he shoots himself in the head, and it's like, God.
They're definitely going for like trying to do the satire thing with those moments, but they're trying to be a little too edgy with it, which I think is probably a Frank Miller thing.
Sure.
Because he's an edgelord, but like it takes it past the point of being, I don't know. It takes it almost a little too far, and I'm not saying that it's like being a prude. I just mean that to me it's less funny because it feels like they're trying too hard.
Yeah.
There was literally the scene where he ends up shooting at the guy that's smoking, and it goes around his head.
Yeah,
he says like, "Thank you for not smoking." That was literally at the time they took that clip and used it in anti-smoking ads before other movies. It wasn't just for in RoboCop.
Which is also very odd. That's what a weird thing to do.
Yeah, but
I do like. I like the world that they build, like with the nuke. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But they kill off Tom Noonan, and he's not even in the second half of the movie, which is annoying because he's such a great character.
Yeah, you say that, but I was actually paying attention to this time, and I was thinking the same thing because I remember this time when I watched it, knowing who Tom Noonan is and seeing him as an actor, as a character actor, as we all have in different stuff. Like, I think of stuff like Hell on Wheels right now, even with him in it, and loving
Lawnmower
that
Man.
Yeah, and Lawnmower Man. Like, I love that guy. Really, Kane / RoboCop 2 doesn't show up until it would be like, if you were separating this, it would be like 3/4 of the way into the movie.
Not Kane the character, as Tom Noonan is there pretty early.
No, I mean like him leaving the movie and it just being he's supposed to be this robot. The robot doesn't show up until the robot literally is like 20 to 30 minutes of the robot.
Yeah, you're right. But I'm just saying I wish like they shouldn't have they kind of abandoned that character pretty early on, and they never explained why that doctor is wanting to look at like psychopaths' brains to put into this.
I think it was more
that is true.
They never explained that.
They were looking for a way to control RoboCop, and she started looking at psychopaths because she thought about I think it was a lower intellect, but then she realized drug addicts would actually be better.
That's a good point.
When they got Kane, they're like, "Oh well, perfect."
Well, they were
granted. All this should be explained better, so that's a fact.
Right.
But
yeah,
I mean, I guess the only explanation I would have is similar to what Todd would have is like she also thought like who would relish the opportunity to be immortal, that sort of thing. That they were looking for somebody that was like really into the idea of being the robot, that kind of thing, and they could control. So maybe they were looking for that with Kane. I don't know. What you got to do with RoboCop 2 is you got to take it as this is RoboCop just in the dumb action movie side of things. Like it's just fun. I think that RoboCop 2 is fun. Like, as far as the violence is great. Fuck, when they do like the different versions of RoboCop 2, when they try to break
That's
them down.
hysterical.
When the one shoots itself in the head and the sirens go off.
I like the one with the like just a skull for a face that starts screaming.
It's like rips his own head. Oh, it's so great. Like, there's some really good stuff in RoboCop.
There's some good. There is some really good stuff in it. I like the little kid. I like the one thing about Kane dying early on is that little kid gets to become like a kingpin, and he's like going to buy an entire city from the mayor. And I like that it takes a full 3 minutes of just a guy playing the fiddle while doing a like weird twisting his body around, during the telethon.
Oh my God, playing Born to Be Wild on the
fiddle. But I just think all those things don't work as a whole.
Well, it's like the mayor is such a great character. Like, he's a lot of fun. And,
he's fun.
But it's just
can I say, I don't think Peter Weller is very good in this one. I think
you're allowed to say that.
You're allowed to say that, but until you see him not be in the movie, then
I don't think that he's good as, like, I think his movements and stuff are a little more forced in this one. I think even his speaking voice is a little more forced in this one. Like, it just doesn't come across as well as it does in the first movie.
You might be right, because I did think in the second one, like, wow, he is really like just pushing those arms out and
doing like the weird, like, puffed out chest, like robot walking, which he doesn't. It's a lot more subtle in the first movie and comes across as a lot more believable. But
whatever, go fuck a refrigerator, Peckerneck.
But Phil Tippett does the stop motion again in this one, and the stop motion fight between RoboCop and RoboCop 2 at the end is pretty fucking great.
I love it. It's like a
kaiju fight.
Well, it's what you know, like, if you listen to our RoboCop episode, I think, Justin, you brought this up, that like a lot of people thought that the finale for the movie should be a robot fight, and Ed 209 is not really the person to make that happen, but Kane allows that to happen, and you get a good solid RoboCop fight, which I would argue, by the way, watching it this time, is 100% ripped off in Iron Man, like the original Iron Man.
Oh yeah. Oh God, I didn't even
Iron
think
Man versus Ironmonger.
Yeah, because he totally does it was like the same fucking thing.
Yeah, and, like around his neck, and
and he like jumps on him from up above and like grabs it and starts pulling out shit. Like, it just anyway.
Here's a fun fact. Can I give you guys a fun fact about RoboCop 2?
I'm ready.
Okay, there was a serial killer by the name of Nathaniel White who killed like 9 people, and he claimed to have found inspiration for his first murder while watching RoboCop 2.
No, he didn't.
He did. Here's a quote. "The first girl I killed was from a RoboCop movie. I seen him cut somebody's throat, then take the knife and slit down the chest to the stomach and left the body in a certain position. With the first person I killed, I did exactly what I saw in the movie."
Shut the fuck up. No, fuck that guy. No, I'm sorry. I don't like, no. Nobody killed somebody because of RoboCop 2. Shut up.
Saying he didn't kill somebody because of RoboCop. He just got inspired on how he was going to kill them.
I mean, that could go for anything.
Because he killed people. 6 people he killed in the early 1990s.
All based on RoboCop movies.
Oh yeah, different one for each person. No, he was sentenced to life in prison. So, he was caught. Obviously.
Yeah,
yes, he was inspired by RoboCop 2. It's an inspirational movie.
I hate that. Well, no, it's that kind of shit that people use against movies like this, and RoboCop 2 is just stupid fun. It wasn't until this time watching it, Todd, you poked fun at it, but for my whole life, for some reason in my brain, I have had the phrase "behave yourselves" like in my head, and I didn't ever know what it was from, and it's from this fucking movie.
It's
Dan O'Herlihy. saying behave yourselves.
Yeah.
And he's so fucking great. He's so over the top and ridiculous in this. And I get it. We brought this up earlier, so here's your chance. He is a different dude.
Very, very much.
Yeah.
And what's
definitely
wild
the evil
is
guy.
that they don't even get like caught, or they don't get in trouble at the end. The OCP executives, which some people thought that was a problem. They thought that there was, Peter Weller specifically thought that he's like, the movie doesn't have a third act. They're like, nah, it's fine. It's going to fight the other robot. Like, no, that's not like the villain. That's not the main villain. This movie doesn't have a third act. They're like, nah, it'll be fine. But he's right. It really doesn't have a third act. It just kind of like RoboCop 2 should be like the kind of like the Ed 209. Like he's the one you fight before you get to the main bad guy. But even the first movie had Ed 209, plus it had Boddicker, then it had Dick Jones. And, this one, the old man and his attorney guy or whatever it is, they just kind of walk away and they're going to blame it on the lady.
Yeah.
But-
I was going to say, yeah, they pin it all on the women.
But I kind of dig that. Well, as far as like they pass it off, and I love the ending of, Lewis being like, these guys are getting away. These guys are doing it, and he's just like screwing it his boat. He's like, we're only human, And I love that ending.
This
but
movie
it's the same
also
thing-
does the big movie no of killing a child.
No, it goes all in on that shit. Like it just,
yeah.
it'll fuck up a child. It doesn't care about that. But I will say this, it is a bit more touching than you expect it to be, because this kid's been nothing but a douche. But by the time he dies, it is kind of sad.
Well, they try to make it sad, but then if you're watching it, you're like, yeah, this kid's a murderous little shit and has been the entire movie. So why are you now trying to make me care that he's dying just because he's 12? Like, that kid's an asshole.
Well, yeah, I mean, that I don't have anything to say to that. He is an asshole. But God, I don't know. I think this movie did the same stuff that the first stuff did, in that it hired character actors to do some really great stuff. And it had a lot of cool scenes. It had like some good gore. It had a lot of what the original had, except it was missing
Except a good script.
the good script. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Well,
I mean,
and
honestly,
I just say that
I'm-
as in it. Nothing from it came together. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't. It just
They should
doesn't
have
have
developed
the
it
impact.
longer. They should
Yeah.
have developed it longer, and they should have let the original writers work on the script and really give them time to development. And they didn't do that. It also, I mean, Irvin Kershner's a good director, but he is not Paul Verhoeven. Like it's missing that certain spark that you get from a Verhoeven movie that makes something feel. I know Verhoeven movies have a very specific like feel to them, and that's part of what made the original RoboCop work so well. We talked about that, like that perfect blend of script and director, that perfect partnership between those. And this movie doesn't have that. It just doesn't. I mean, it still did well. I mean, it made $45 million at the box office, another $22.5 million in video rentals. So it was successful enough to warrant a sequel, even though the reviews were kind of mixed on it. But it did get a sequel. You guys ready
Yeah.
to talk about that sequel?
Well, we can in just a second. Do you want to know some of the? Do you want to know the directives that were implanted into his brain?
Yes,
All of them?
please. Yes.
Not
have a
all of
list?
them. I mean, there's like 300, but I have the ones that appear on screen at any point that you could see.
Okay, please do tell.
All right, these go from 233 to 278, but it's not all of those. 233 is restrain hostile feelings. 234 is promote positive attitude. 235 is suppress aggressiveness. 236 is promote pro-social values. 238 is avoid destructive behavior. 239, be accessible. 240, participate in group activities. 241, avoid interpersonal conflicts. 242, avoid premature value judgments. 243, pull opinions before expressing yourself. 244 is discourage feelings of negativity and hostility. 245, if you haven't got anything nice to say, don't talk. The internet could use 245.
I'll be honest, every one of these sounds like something that actual police officers should take into account. Like this, and then the movie, and that's what I was saying about like the way that Frank Miller portrays it in the movie, as if this is all a negative thing, you know? But like, no, this is actually all very good advice, not for just police officers. So far.
Now we start getting weird. 246 is don't rush traffic lights. Okay, fair enough. 247, don't run through puddles and splash pedestrians or other cars.
I mean, you shouldn't do that if you can help it.
248, don't say that you're always prompt when you are not. 249, don't be oversensitive to the hostility and negativity of others. 250, don't walk across a ballroom floor swinging your arms.
That's so specific.
254, encourage awareness. 256, discourage harsh language. We saw that as an example. 258, commend sincere efforts. 261, talk things out. 262, avoid Orion meetings. Is
that really on there?
That was legit.
That's funny.
Oh, that's funny.
266, smile. 267, keep an open mind. 268, encourage participation. 273, avoid stereotyping. And 278, seek nonviolent solutions. Those are the ones you can see in the movie at some point.
Nice. Wow. So weird. But a lot of those that first half of those were actually very good advice. Mm-hmm. Not just for police, just for people in general, but
avoid Orion meetings.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about RoboCop 3.
Let's. Well, I hate the no Peter Weller.
Well, I don't care, Gary, because you know what? So in place of Peter Weller here, we've got Robert John Burke. Peter Weller couldn't come. He was making.
Well, that's a big reveal right here on this show, folks.
Oh, Peter Weller was busy making Naked Lunch for David Cronenberg, which is why he was not available to make this. Although I'm not sure.
Oh, that's a movie.
Yeah, Naked Lunch.
Okay. I was like, man, I would think with the success of RoboCop, you wouldn't have to make Naked Lunch for anybody.
What is it? Oh, Jesus Christ, Todd. Todd.
Gary had one. I'm allowed to have one.
Don't bring me into this. I'm being innocent.
Okay, so RoboCop 3, you've got Frank Miller back as the screenwriter, although he is the, I believe, sole screenwriter on this one, because he was still trying to like make his career in as like a screenwriter. He thought he still kind of was holding out hope that would happen. And he hoped that some of his ideas that didn't get used in RoboCop 2 would make it into RoboCop 3. Although after this was released, he was still kind of disillusioned even further because even less of his stuff made it onto the screen.
Looks like Fred Decker got a co-screenplay credit on this.
Yeah.
Too.
Well,
for better or worse, for Fred Decker. This is the only reason I could ever imagine this movie coming up is if we did a Fred Decker series.
Fred Decker hasn't done enough movies to do a whole series on him, I don't think. I don't know. But Frank Miller was so disillusioned after seeing the final version of this movie that he didn't make another movie in Hollywood until 2005 for Sin City, where he got a co-directing credit because he was like, don't be a screenwriter, be a director is basically what he said. But that's just screenwriting, man. I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
So yeah, this time you got Fred Decker in the director's chair. Fred Decker, known for Night of the Creeps and the Monster Squad. He had also recently written the screenplay for Ricochet with Denzel Washington right before this movie came out. Oh. And but yeah, okay, back to this cast. You've got Peter Weller not here, so Robert John Burke is here. And I think Robert John Burke is pretty good in this. I honestly think he is better in this than Peter Weller is in part 2.
Shut your mouth.
Nope. I'm saying it.
Shut your mouth.
That's the I'm gonna say the hill I'm gonna die on. Well, maybe not, but I do stand by that statement. I think he's better than Peter Weller is in the second movie, not better than Peter Weller is in the first, not by a long shot.
I'm gonna do everything I can, Justin, to make sure that gets engraved on your tombstone.
Robert John Burke is better than Peter Weller
here and now.
What
it's only
issues
it's
do you
only
have
in
with
the
him other than the fact that he's not Peter Weller?
That's it. I mean, it's just that it doesn't sound like RoboCop anymore. It doesn't. It's just not the same dude anymore.
It's not the same actor, of course.
Well, the movie's about that fucking guy, Justin.
I mean, what happens when you watch the?
If
James
you don't
Bond
get the same
movies?
goddamn person, then don't do it.
Tell that to James Bond. Tell that to the Broccoli family who have been making James Bond movies for 50
You know what? You know what, you piece of shit? If you'd have got like Pierce Brosnan to do RoboCop, then maybe I'd have a different opinion.
I'd buy that for $1.
But I mean, recasting in sequels is not unusual. I mean, the Marvel movies have done it. You know, Rhodey got recast pretty early on. It's not unusual. It sucks when it happens, but I think if you're not going to get Peter Weller, Robert John Burke is a pretty good substitute. I think he's pretty good.
He's fine. It's just a shitty movie, and you're going to defend it, and I don't know.
I am going to defend it because I think it is. Here's the thing: RoboCop 2 and 3 are both objectively not very good movies.
No, shut your mouth. RoboCop 2 is fun. RoboCop 3, you want to talk about like some pacing issues?
I think RoboCop 3's pacing is better than the second one.
No,
I do.
I just think wrong with you. RoboCop 3 is.
I think the pacing is better. I think it moves along at a better clip.
Everything about
it's got a
RoboCop
Robo
3 is
Yakuza
terrible.
in it. It's got a Robo Yakuza, and the makeup effects
Which
on that
sounds
guy.
good on paper.
It's great. Like when he gets hit in the face and his face is all smashed, that's a great makeup effect.
Dude,
It's pretty cool. It's fun. You get RoboCop on a jetpack at the end of the movie.
That was something nobody needed.
What? Yeah. Who didn't want RoboCop? The toys already had it. I guarantee you by the time this movie came out.
Well, that may be true.
Every kid who had those toys wanted that.
Save it for when you can make that not look dumb as shit.
It doesn't look bad. I mean, it
looks pretty bad.
It doesn't look any worse than other movies that were coming out around this time. I mean, because
I'm not talking about other movies. I'm talking about RoboCop 3.
But that you're making the same like argument that the people on our who somebody needs a nap.
What fucking world did we land in that Justin is defending RoboCop 3?
I know.
I can't imagine how
this was
happened.
the tweet that I mentioned at the top of this very episode.
I can't even believe I am in this reality.
Here's the thing. I said neither one of these is a great movie, but I think that RoboCop 3 is better than people give it credit for.
RoboCop.
I think Robert John Burke is fun. I think Rip Torn is great as the CEO of OCP. You know, he's. I mean, Rip Torn's great in everything. But you've got CCH Pounder in there as, you know, one of the homeless people. Like you've got Stephen Root in there. I mean, you've got some great character actors in there.
Okay. So all right.
You got Shane Black.
I think I'm landing on a similar page as you in that RoboCop 3 is maligned as a garbage movie, like fuck you, like this is the worst movie ever made, blah blah
and
blah.
It's
blah,
not.
blah.
I mean, it's fine. It's a popcorn movie.
It's there.
It's a popcorn movie that if I were like, you know, if I'm 16 years old and I'm flipping channels on cable as we used to do.
If you're a completist and you're just like, I just want to watch the sequel RoboCop 3.
It's 90 minutes of like entertainment.
Yeah,
you know, it's fun.
Then fine, okay.
It's fun. I'm not saying it's a great
lean into
movie.
that.
It's not.
It's not good. But
neither is part 2 though. I mean, you've got nostalgic feelings
for
part 2.
Because it's fucking fantastic.
It's not though. It's not.
Let's step outside. That's RoboCop 2 has some of the best fucking lines in it. I love RoboCop 2 so much.
We know.
Anyway.
We've established
that's the hill Gary's gonna die on.
It is full of good lines, and it's got like great dialogue and an actual robot fight at the end. Like there's good stuff.
There's a robot fight at the end of this one.
Yeah, it's RoboCop like blasting the face off of a Japanese robot.
The music's better in this one. because Basil's back for this one.
He brings the theme back,
and he
so
brings
I'll
the
give
theme
him
back
that.
because they didn't even use the theme in the second movie, which is kind of
which is weird. Which is
very
okay.
weird.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't bring that back.
Okay, fair enough on that.
Well, here's the thing. RoboCop 3 at the time of its release, well, first of all, it went into production right after RoboCop 2, and the plan was to release it in the summer of 92, but then Orion Pictures went bankrupt, and then they got bought out. So the film sat on the shelf for over a year, and it eventually came out in November of 1993. So by 1993, by November of 93, you got to think of where like special effects had moved on to, because in the summer of 93, a little movie called Jurassic Park came out. So you have to wonder if if RoboCop's box office performance had something to do also with audiences' expectations having been raised since the previous movie. Because you compare, this movie looks like it was made 10 years before Jurassic Park, not 1 year before Jurassic Park. And then it got released several months after Jurassic Park. And you could see people like watching this and going like, oh man, this looked pretty shitty compared to those dinosaurs that Steven Spielberg just gave us.
Yeah, that's true.
It's and critics did not like it. It's at 6% on Rotten Tomatoes right now.
I mean, there's a lot about it that just feels like really cheap, and I don't know what it is, because I mean, there's things
The
like
suit looks better.
I was about to say the Fred Decker was a fan of the suit from the original and thought that the second one it was cheap, and so he went back to try to mimic the idea of the first one. So he obviously agreed with you there. I don't know. I don't think the story is very fun. I could see it being a Fred Decker movie in the fact that it like relies on that kid initially at the beginning, and like that just feels like, knowing the little that I know about Fred Decker so far, is that like from Monster Squad and Night of the Creeps, like it's like going to take the innocent younger person perspective to like launch them into this situation and that sort of thing. But I don't know. It just didn't flow with me. And then they kill Lewis.
Yeah, that's it's so weird that they kill her so early on. You almost expect, like, if I were making it, it would be they kill Lewis early on, and then in the third act, she comes back as a RoboCop to help in the final battle. Like,
that would be actually kind of badass.
Because like maybe RoboCop is surrounded by like 5 of these Yakuza robots, and he's getting overwhelmed, he's getting outgunned, and then the Lewis RoboCop shows up because they brought her back, which they kind of alluded to even in the first movie. Like at the end of the first movie, when she gets hurt in that final scene,
and he says, "Well, they'll fix you.
They'll fix you.
Everything.
They fix everything." Yeah. So that kind of makes you think that she's going to come back in the sequel as a robot, and that never happens.
And it would have been cool if like there was one of the directives about fair play, or even the odds or something like that. So you let him quote that like as she bursts through the window or something.
But I like the idea of RoboCop and the police like fighting against OCP. That's a fun concept.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that are kind of interesting about it, and some things that seem to be lifted from that initial idea from Neumeier and Miner, that there's these like outcast people that are trying to fight back against the corporations and the government. I don't know. It's RoboCop 3 never feels as fun to me. I don't know.
Well, I don't think anyone's calling 2 or 3 a classic.
I'm calling 2 a classic.
Well, you are, but nobody else is. And Todd, you rewatched the 2014 remake as well, didn't you?
I did.
And you like it, right?
I did. When I saw it initially in theaters, I was just kind of like, okay, I get what you're doing. That's fine. Update the special effects. You've got a pretty star-studded cast. It's fun. It's fine. And we're trying to just recash in on a classic.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it since it came out. I saw it the year it came out, but that's about it. But
Yeah, but I mean,
um,
you've got great
I-
performances in there from Michael Keaton, Gary Oldman.
Joel Kinnaman is just so bland.
Yeah,
To
but-
me, like, and that's the thing with that whole movie. To me, it felt very bland, and it takes away like all the satire of
Which
the
is too bad
original.
because
That was
they
the
do
thing
the
that I wanted-
casting thing right.
that was the
Right.
thing that I wanted to talk about with the remake was, yeah, they did take a lot of the satire away, but I think what they were primarily focused on was the idea of the man in the machine. I mean, because, I mean, again, it's, the prequels focusing on, Federation trade. So, nobody wants to see a RoboCop movie where all they're doing is sitting around talking about science and like someone tightening a bolt for an hour. Like, that doesn't make for an interesting movie, but I think
Yeah,
they do present these ideas of this doctor that has been doing a lot of work with soldiers and law enforcement officers who have lost limbs. And, there's that idea of these prosthetics that they're having to connect the brain and, the brain with the quote unquote heart, the brain with the emotions, and talking about what it is to suffer in that fashion. And it's really more of an exploration of Alex Murphy as a man, as opposed to the world that he's in.
yeah.
So
I mean,
you're exploring the guy.
I mean, that's a great concept, but the movie to me just loses the bite that the original had. Like we talked about on our RoboCop episode, how part of what makes that work so much is because it kind of went against the grain of what was expected. Whereas this feels very much like a big studio production that's just mass marketed, it has good people involved, like you said, the cast is good. Jose Padilla, the director, the other stuff I've seen of his is really good. Like he did Elite Squad and Elite Squad 2. Elite Squad 2 especially is pretty great. It's the movie that he made, I think, right before RoboCop. Then he also did the Netflix, that Narcos TV series.
Yeah.
It's really good. So he's a great director, or the stuff I've seen I've really enjoyed. But
I think honestly, I really do think the remake is worth a second look, because it's not focusing on the corporate greed and that stuff. It's focusing on a lot of the legal ramifications of having an entity like RoboCop in society, and it's focusing on the trauma that Alex Murphy endured and continues to endure being turned into RoboCop.
Yeah.
And whereas the wife in the first one and the sequels is little more than a flash of memory, you actually get to see her presented with, hey, we need you to sign these papers. And you see like the trauma, first of all, the trauma of having her husband blown apart, but then the added thing of like, hey, we need you to sign these documents so that we can turn him into a robot, and we need you to do it right now. Like,
yeah,
you get some great emotional beats with the wife and the son, and that's something that's missing from the original trilogy. I'm not saying that it's better. I'm saying it's different and it's not worse.
right.
But I think it's worth revisiting.
I remember RoboCop the remake being more of a revenge movie than anything else.
It's a little bit of you also get the added mystery of like, he's a detective. In the first trilogy, he's a beat cop. So this, you actually get to see him investigate his own murder, which is a fantastic concept alone. But then, so you've got that part of it. And then you get to see like how that all stacks together with the corporation and law enforcement and the street gangs, and how
I'd be willing to give it another shot too, because I remember there's guys like Gary Oldman's in it, Samuel
Jackie Earl Haley fucking steals the show.
Haley
Michael K. Williams is in it, isn't he?
Michael K. Williams is in it.
Mhm.
So like Joel Kinnaman, I would argue, is probably like the least known guy.
Yeah.
Who's
Because
like
it was
in there as
this
RoboCop.
before Suicide Squad,
This is
right?
before Suicide Squad,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
I might revisit it one day. Well,
I'm not opposed to it. Like it's
It's not. I mean, not perfect as like any movie is, but it got a lot of flack. And then having watched it in the theater and kind of divorced myself from it for a few years, and then revisiting it, I was like, you know what, this actually isn't that bad. And look at the things that they are talking about.
Yeah,
I think there's some meat on those bones.
I'm going to read the first three just for this story. This podcast. I'm going to read the first four. I'm going to read the first four so I can get to this one. No, 5. I'm going to do it.
Oh,
RoboCop
Jesus Christ,
2.
Gary.
Letterbox reviews of this film. 1/2 star. Arguably the biggest drop in quality from a first film to a sequel. The kid gangster is one of the worst villains ever. 1/2 star. Far inferior to the original. Should have left it alone. 1/2 star. This was actually painful to sit through. It was so bad that it felt like it would just never end. 2 hours of pure boredom. And 1/2 star. Fascist trash. Politically noxious. Structurally and exhausting. Dead end. Bad. Ooh. Yeah, that was 4. 5 would be same problem I have with Magnum Force. Why would you make a sequel to RoboCop? Seriously, this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It tries to do so many things at once, and it just does not work. You'll probably forget about half the storylines by the end of the movie because there's so many that are just forgotten about.
Yeah, we discussed at length the messiness of the script, and yeah, it does feel like vignettes. That was perfect description.
That was RoboCop 2. RoboCop 3's top 5. Not good reviews. Let's look this up.
There's a 1/2 star on Letterboxd that just says FartoCop.
FartoCop.
Well,
you got it right there.
FartoCop.
Oh my God, FartoCop.
Here's another one that says "Fuck RoboCop 3, one of the worst films," that's in quotes, "ever made. Fucking the potential this franchise had into the dirt."
Yeah, well, there's a 1/2 star. At least RoboCop 2 wasn't boring. 1/2 star. Holy shit, this is bad. Not like so bad it's good, just bad. Why in the unholy fuck would you make RoboCop PG-13? I haven't been this mad at a movie in a long time. It's like a canon film, both no heart or no fun. The cinematography and everything else, the lighting, the editing, the acting, the effects, the script is all just whoa. It's so fucking bland and lifeless. There's no joy in anything. It's so dull. I'm not even going to continue the rest of that review.
So if you guys want to continue your journey into the world of RoboCop, like we mentioned, there are not just these sequels, not just the remake, but there's animated series, TV series, TV mini series. Our friend Miles and his podcast over at The More You Nerd are releasing, or by the time you've listened to this, have just released an episode where they actually discuss the original TV series from back in the 90s. So if you really want to just really get into the nitty gritty on RoboCop, Miles is there for you. Just go find them at The More You Nerd. Same places you can find us. They're on all the podcast channels. So
there's so many places.
Tell them Cinema Shock sent you.
There's so many comics about RoboCop versus Terminator, and I remember playing that game thinking it was some slick shit when I was a kid, going over to my buddy Paul's house, and he had the Sega, and you could play RoboCop versus Terminator, and you were just walking through shooting the skeletons. I forget what they're called, but
the exoskeletons, the T-800s.
T-800s. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah. So anyway, well, this is our first and hopefully successful
and hopefully last
round tables discussion. Like I said, these are not always going to be like this. It's not always going to be just the three of us. Sometimes we'll have guests on for these round table shows. Sometimes we won't. Sometimes they may or may not tie into a recent episode like this one, but we'll release these every now and then in between main episodes, just if something comes up that we think is fun to discuss, like discussing these sequels. Because I don't know if we are going to do one for Total Recall. I think I don't want to make any promises, but I do think that we've got something planned for that. So
do we?
Yeah, we do. Anyway, I'm done with these movies, guys. How about y'all?
No, I'm never done with RoboCop.
Well, we're done with this episode. So, where you guys want to tell everyone where you can be found on the internet?
Yeah, I'm at Mr. Todd A. Davis on all of the socials. And if you like Star Trek, you can find my podcast at Computer Resume Podcast on all of the places where you get your podcasts. We discuss the entire franchise of Star Trek in chronological order for fans new and old. So come join us, and you can follow the show at Computer Resume on all of the socials.
Really glad you explained the premise of the podcast every single time, Todd.
All I'm going to share with you guys is this is Gary Horne. You can find everything you need to know there, but also you can go to classicreload.com /DR-SB, that's B as in boy, AITSO. That's Dr. Spatzo. You can hit that up. I'm going to show these guys after we cut off recording, but
say fuck.
Yeah. Dr. Spatzo, classicreload.com. You can get Dr. Spatzo. You can still hang out with him. He's a therapist, a robot therapist, and he sounds like RoboCop too.
Well, I am at Justin_Bishop. The show is at Cinema_Shock on Twitter, Instagram. You can find us on Facebook, Discord, all those places. Rate, review the show. Let us know what you think about this this bonus episode and what you'd like to see us do with more bonus episodes. Until next week,
may the wings of liberty never lose a feather.
And be excellent to each other.
And he has the keys.